Right, we just went live. Yeah.
JP, check in.
How you doing? All right.
Hello?
Hey, Carla.
Here I come for you. Inhale. Clear a minute. Good time of year to be planting trees.
It'll be soft and everything.
No, it's going to hot summer, especially in the fall.
No. All right, we're about just a few seconds before 6 o'clock. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. And I'll ask our city recorder to call the roll, and if you would also call out the department head through our own line.
Gwen Anderson,
Here.
Ralph Cobb,
Here.
Wendell Dilding,
Here.
Sandra Clyde, Kenneth Moore,
Here.
Willie Parker.
There.
Okay, and we have a quorum of our aldermen here, all of our aldermen here, and if you would call out department heads.
Carla Edwards. Carla.
Here.
Carrie Cooper. Jeff Pierpoint.
Here.
Chris Crawford. Is in the building. Joey Winstead.
Here.
Paul Hutcherson.
Here.
Okay, appears that everybody's in order tonight. I want to welcome everybody to our March meeting of the Dresden Board of Mayor and Aldermen. And in a little bit, we'll have a session where there's a opportunity to have input from citizens. And at that point in time, we generally allow citizens to speak up to 3 minutes unless the board grants additional time beyond that. And we have our auditor with us, Mr. Poole is with us this evening. We're going to hear from him later on in the meeting. And we have some other guests with us tonight that we're going to talk with as well. If you would stand, and we'll have an invocation, and after that I'll ask Ralph Cobb if he would lead us into the Pledge of Allegiance after the invocation. I'll lead the invocation. Heavenly Father, we're thankful for this evening, and we're thankful for the blessings that you've sent us. Father, we pray that you'd be with us during this meeting. Just lead, guide, and direct us in the way that you have us to conduct this meeting. And Father, we pray that for your blessings upon those in our community who are in need of your healing touch, or whatever other need they might have in their life. These things we pray in Christ's name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. 3 minutes of the previous meeting, you received those in your meeting packet. Are there any additions, subtractions, or questions about the minutes as they've been typed? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve? Motion by Lyndall Dildy. Do I hear a second? Second by Alderman Klutz. Any discussion on the motion second? Hearing none, if you would call the roll.
Anderson,
Yes.
Cobb,
Yes.
Dilding,
Yes.
Klutz. Yes. Moore,
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Okay, the minutes of the previous meeting are approved as written. Communications from mayor, we're in the process of preparing our budget for the next fiscal year. We anticipate that we'll probably present it at the April meeting for first reading. We'll have a budget workshop sometime in April after the first reading, and then we'll have the second reading and the approval of those meetings after a public hearing at the May meeting. We'll try to get our budget approved and out of the way just as quick as we can. This year, we've got a budget that's been tentatively given to me this past week, and I've looked over it, and it's going to be one of the easiest budgets to work through, I think, that we've ever had. Just a few things. We're going to be meeting with the department heads on Friday. Carla and Jennifer and I are going to meet with the department heads, go through their respective budgets, make any changes that need to be made, and just come to understand what they're asking for in their particular departments and address those issues to try to get. We don't have as much asked for this year as we normally do. One of the biggest things we're putting money into is going to be paving again, and we actually are going to be submitting for bids for next year's paving here. I think you've already placed that, have you not? And try to get those things to you early so you'll have a chance to look at them and consider them well before the start of the fiscal year. We're going to try to get a head start on the paving so it doesn't end up being done the week before Christmas the way it has the last couple of years. Some other things, we've had some major problems with some sewer leaks and things, not actually sewer leaks as such, but we had a sewer line that broke, and our Public Works Department addressed that last week, did a fabulous job out on the Greenfield Highway of getting that repaired same day and without any major problems, and I appreciate their efforts and what they've done there. We're going to be doing some other projects around in the community, and I'll tell you that currently looking at what we're going to do about the Irish Festival. They're talking to members of the Irish Festival Committee to see where they're headed with that, and we're going to be looking at let's see, well, it escaped me, but we're going to be doing some other things like an Arbor Day thing next week and things like that are underway. That's basically all the communications I have from Mayor right at this moment. We're down to the point in our, does anybody have any questions to me about that? Yes, Alderman Moore.
I have nothing but time on my hands. All I have to do the rest of the year is where you are. This workshop committee you're gonna have on the budget, could I be included sitting in on that?
Well, yes, sir. That's for all the aldermen. You want to come up here?
I do.
All right. Now, are you talking about the workshop where we're going to meet with all the aldermen and go through it, or?
I'm talking about any budget work whatsoever, I'd like to be included.
Okay, you want to come Friday?
Sure.
All right.
Could she send out some email?
We'll let you know. We're actually going to meet with the various aldermen, not the aldermen, but the department heads about 20 minutes apart and through the morning. She'll send you out a notice and let you know. If you'd like to come, it'd be fine.
Could you just send one to all of us?
Yes, we can do that.
You know, just in case.
And I will put a notice on the board advertising as such, so that we are not in violation of sunshine law.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Hearing none, input from citizens. Sandra Taylor is asked to be included in the input section tonight. If you'd like to stand and address the board, welcome to do that.
Yes, thank y'all for letting me come. I am Sandra Taylor. I think some of y'all know me. I am with the Dresden Business Association that has just recently started back up. I know there's been an association in the past and hadn't been very active lately. So Donetta is here tonight, Davis with me, and then Larry Scarson's here tonight. They're also on the board. We just wanted to kind of give some things that we're doing that we really want, and was hoping that the city was going to be involved in, and us working together. I think bringing the businesses together and growing in the community is about teamwork, and that's working together to do that. There was just a few things that we was going to see that we may need from the city. Didn't know what we was going to be able to have access to. We do have money in the bank. We do plan on doing several fundraisers and events throughout the year that we have planned, but we don't have money to purchase everything that, that it's going to require, and some of the things that the city has. We didn't know where we stood with that. We just kind of wanted to bring it out to see if we was going to have permission from you guys using that. Some of the events are going to be held at the farmer's market. We hope we're going to have permission to do that. I know in the past, the association has not been part of working throughout the year and helping taking care of the farmer's market, and we would like to do that. So we would like to be in part in the events and everything going over there and help scheduling that and setting that up to help bring in and get to make it as successful as we can over there. We're just willing as a board to come together to do that. The tables and the different things that the city has that they kind of put out. I spoke to Jeff already about like the popcorn machine when we do our events. He said that we can have access to that when the city parks or one of them is not using it, that we would be able to have access to use that, to bring that in our events, the tables and different things that's over there. We didn't know if we was going to be able to have access to that to use from our events, because the event that we do is for the city. So anything that we can have to help make that successful, we would really, really appreciate that, being able to do that. Another thing, the event that we got coming up on March the 13th, I might go over 3 minutes. Are y'all okay with that? We got a big event that we've got planned for March the 13th. We've got a lot of good return from the community in that. We have a Dunkin' booth. We have a touch a truck. We're going to be giving away a trailer in the community for the person that touches it the longest. We got a rockathon that we're doing. We got an obstacle course that we're doing. We got a chili cook-off that we're doing, and a lot of people have already turned in participation on that. We got vendors that's going to be setting up around the square. So we wanted to make sure that we was going to have, with the city's permission, to be able to block off some of these roads. I know we can't block off the main road unless we have a 2-month advance from the state and all that, but just blocking off the area that, that's been blocked off in the past, doing and helping where we can have some of our events here. We don't plan on having everything here. We're going to try to wrench vendor out into the community, out on the highways, and use some of the other businesses out there, because in the past, a lot of stuff has been done on the square, and a lot of people was under the understanding that the business association was for the businesses on the square, and that's just not true. I mean, it's for all of Dresden, and we want to make sure that we include all of Dresden in on that and help support all of the businesses in the area and help them grow. In order to do that, we want to make sure that we're going to be able to work with the city on doing that. And I know that there's been talk of the Iris Festival. I know many years ago, the Iris Festival was actually formed by the Dresden Business Association, and then later it was handed off to the city, for my understanding, and then they had changed the name and so forth. We would like to be back on that committee as well if possible and be able to help with the Iris Festival. I know that there's been some that kind of stepped down from that, but we would like to be able to have a chance to maybe to be a part of that, help that grow, help it. I know with the COVID, things have been different this year, and they're talking about abbreviating that. I would just hate to see that it kind of get where it's put on the back burner and not done at all. There's a lot of people in the community that support that and want to see the Iris Festival, go on this year. I think the other festivals are being taken place, and I think with the precautions, I think that the city could also do that as well. We just wanted to see if we could be a part of that as well and help make that be successful this year as well. That's all I got right now.
Have you, all these things, have you requested these assistance from the city?
Have we what?
Have you already requested some of these things of need for assistance to the city?
No, sir.
Is this
From my
the first time?
understanding, we was gonna bring it here to see what we needed to do with that and how we needed to request that.
I think you've already been told that usually those decisions, at least in the text messages you sent me, that you've been told that those requests should be directed to the mayor, and that the mayor will make those day-to-day decisions as he's the CEO of the city.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't have any problem with that, of course. But do you foresee any problems with?
Here's the problem with
police
loaning
problem.
equipment, and our auditor's sitting here as well, and normally we do not let it loan out equipment. It's a matter of policy for the city. But the popcorn popper she asked for, I checked with the park director. There's no intent. There's nothing going on that particular date. But we don't need a carte blanche permission to borrow a popcorn popper all the time because it's the parks. And it's used in the concession stand at the park and other recreation facilities. It's just our policy that we don't loan out equipment like that, any equipment, because of it. Sometimes it's damaged and it's brought back as in the past. I inherited that policy. I didn't make that policy, but that's been the long-standing policy of the city, not to loan out equipment. But we are going to allow them to use the popcorn popper, and with the understanding that it'll come back in as good a shape as it was. And we have always assisted anybody in opening up streets or blocking off streets to assist. That's never been an issue with anything. And we'll do the same here, but we cannot block off the state highways and we cannot block off the post office. That's just what the law is. We can't deny the post office access during their normal business hours. But all of those things are fine. I don't have a problem with them setting up at the farmer's market. But that the city does run the city farmer's market, and personally, I don't want to turn over the operation of the farmer's market to another organization. They're more than welcome to have events there and things, even on the day of a farmer's market. I don't see a problem with that. But I don't want them taking over the operation of the market because that's traditionally been, since it opened, we've handled it.
Can most of this be scheduled through you or through Ms. Priscilla?
Well, they can be scheduled through me and Jennifer.
That's all the question I have.
Good. I don't have a problem with any of the things that you've mentioned or request for us to be of assistance on it. I think it's a good thing.
There's other organizations that utilize our facilities around the town here, and if you get something lined up, I agree, it's best to go ahead and keep them overlapping. I don't have any problem with it. If the city business owner makes the money, that's revenue from the city itself.
Mhm.
So I have no problem.
We've stressed, and I think that we support everything that they've planned on doing. But it's, when there's an issue about borrowing equipment or something other, I need to check with the department head and see that, make sure there's not other plans for it at that time and things like that before I say, yes, you have permission. And it might take 2 or 3 days to get that, as it did this last week. I was asked, I think, on Friday, and I got back with her on today, Wednesday? It was about 3 or 4 days before I got back with her about using the equipment, but there's no problem with that. I just don't want there to be a thought that we're gonna do it, we're just gonna, there needs to be some permission and planning and things like that well in advance.
Would the tables be available too?
Oh, yeah, the tables are available for everybody.
I didn't know if the tables belonged to the city or the civic center, or who they.
They
I
belong
knew
to the
we
city
had a
of Dresden,
fee for
the ones
Okay,
there.
so we would be able to
Mhm.
get those. Now, I don't think, unless I'm mistaken, that if we were thinking about taking over the farmer's market, we're just remembering that sometimes they had events up there on Saturday mornings to entertain kids and to do things like that. Well, we've got a train now, and train rides we can give, not to take over or run it. I don't think that's what anybody means, but just to enhance it by offering the things we have back to the city, because the city is going to do things for us and give us things, and we want to return the favors. So that's what we're saying.
Yeah.
And, you know, like we plan to put the train in the Irish Festival Parade, and, you know, anything that we've got we can do, we're gonna do that.
Yeah.
But just to be sure, you know, that we know, because February 13th is right around the corner.
Mhm.
And we've got to plan where we can put everything. And so we know we can't be in front of the post office, but over on this side of the square, it can be blocked off for,
That's right.
for vendors.
And it always has been.
And then up and down the sidewalks, anywhere else is okay, right?
Pretty much, yes, I'd
And
say
then
so.
we haven't decided yet where we've got a lot of stuff. So I don't know that it's gonna fit in that area. And this area can't be blocked off either, right?
The state highway cannot.
Okay, well.
That
then-
doesn't mean that something couldn't be placed in the parking spaces out here,
Yes, okay,
as long as we don't get into road traffic.
all right. Well, we'll just have to get things mapped out where we think we might put them and see if we have enough space, and then we'll just give it to you and go from there.
That's the way it's generally done.
Well, we'll
Another
try to do it
thing
that way.
was the civic center about using that for bingo night.
Yes.
More than one, like whether we do it monthly, bi-monthly, whatever the people in the community want to do, but we want to be able to hold possibly a bingo. I think Mr. Call had his interest in bingo.
Is there any city ordinance against that?
No,
Okay.
none at all.
It's considered a charitable activity. It's not done as far as for gaming or things of that nature. I mean, it codes, there's no prohibition that would stop that.
So if we wanted to put out a designated time each month,
We'd have to agree on the night because the Civic Center is actually leased to the Dresden Senior Citizens Society. Yeah, and they have events up there that they have a calendar. Jennifer keeps the calendar of the Civic Center, and there are people who rent out the Civic Center too, and generally we rent it to other organizations to use, and I don't have an objection to waiving that rental for the business association to use, but we would need to know what night you're gonna use it and um, you need to schedule that well in advance, because sometimes the Civic Center does get booked up. It hasn't been open at all during this past year. And that's because the governor put out a thing that says that they can't be under one of his executive orders. And we have followed the governor's executive orders during this past year in regard to the operation of meetings and other such things, the use of the Senior Citizen Center. And they had direct, specific guidelines regarding Senior Citizen Center that was different from any other organization. But I don't have a problem with them using the Civic Center once a month, or if you want to plan in advance, or just, if you'll give us a schedule months in advance, we'll put you down once each month or whatever you want to do on that. I don't see that as a problem.
And scheduling a Civic Center right now is a little bit trickier too, because it's a vaccine location. So I never know when the health department's up there.
And we've agreed with the health department, and this agreed with our county executive too, that when the health department is actually giving vaccines, there will be no other activities occurring at the Civic Center during that period of time, because of their guidelines that they have to have to operate a vaccine center.
We can work on schedule.
We can work on the schedule, and I'll say this, probably after July or August, the vaccine thing, it's not going to be a big issue. I don't see that it will be a big issue at all, because by then we'll have gone through most of the age groups, and everybody that's going to get a vaccine is generally going to have had it by then, and they're not going to be using the Civic Center for that at that time. Other questions, folks? Okay. Anything else, Andrew?
No.
Okay. But just, if you need to schedule something or request something, you either get a hold of Jennifer and request it, or myself, and as you've done in the last few weeks, we'll try to get back to you, but probably it's not going to be an instantaneous answer if it involves using city equipment. It will be, I will call up or Jennifer will call up the department head and say, is there anything that you're going to be using this for on such and such date? And if the answer is no, then probably we'll extend the invitation to use that equipment with the understanding that it'd be taken care of and brought back in as good a condition as it was when we loaned it. Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? Any other citizen comments?
I would like to say something. I've been with you guys for about 5 months now, and I just wanted to come, and I don't want to take a lot of time, but I just wanted to come and let you know that I turned in my resignation today, and I really appreciate the opportunity of getting to work with the businesses and the community. It's really been a pleasure to work on the different events and get to know everybody. So that's the purpose of me being here, is just to say thank you and just to let you know that.
Thank you. All right. Anybody else have any citizen comments? Hearing none, let's move on to employee reports. Carla Edwards, our finance director. Any questions about her written report? All right. Hearing no questions of Carla, let's move on to Carrie Cooper, our public works director. Any questions of Carrie? Hearing none. Once again, I want to reiterate that Carrie called me the other morning when that line broke, and it was sort of an emergency situation because D&C subdivision, if they hadn't been able to get it repaired, would have been without sewer for that night, and maybe even longer until we could get pipes and stuff in. but they worked diligently throughout the day, made trips and got the equipment and the supplies that they needed to make that repair. And I believe it was about 6:30 that night before they got everything sort of repaired and ready to go back into operation. And fortunately, we didn't have any long-term folks without our sewer service out in DNC subdivision. So Kerry, pass on to the guys that we're appreciative of what they did in this situation and making an excellent effort to get the situation taken care of.
I'll do it.
Jeff Perry, Point, water plant director. I believe Jeff's on the line. I heard him speak. And any questions of Jeff? All right, hearing none. Our police chief, Chris Crocker, is with us tonight. Chris, do you have anything else that you want to add other than your report?
I believe I'm good.
Any
No more
questions of Chris? We've had one of our officers that has resigned and is going to become the chief of police at the city of Sharon. And he's been a good officer. He's not been here. Help us out with his name.
Rodney, right?
He's here. He worked, I don't know, 5 or 6 months, something like that. And he worked the night shift primarily. He was one of them seasoned officers that you really didn't hear a whole lot out of. You didn't hear any complaints about him or anything. And I hate to see him leave, but I understand why he would. He gets to work a day shift and Monday through Friday and go home and those type of things. And there's a lot to be said for that, especially a family man with children. Any questions of Chris? Our partner Joey Winch is on the line. Any questions about Joey's report that he's given us in writing? Hearing none, we'll move on to our fire chief, Paul Hutcherson. I found a report from his department on the desk here. Any questions of Paul? And then you have the community engagement report. Priscilla was just here and she did turn in a resignation this morning. All right, report from Alderman advisory committees.
I'd like to go back and ask Chief Crocker one. Have you written any citations on noise?
I did issue the decibel meter to one of the officers, Officer Chandler. He is using it. He's been monitoring the vehicles, and the loudest one that he said he has got is 88.8 decibels from 50 feet sitting on the side of the highway. Of course, we have to be close proximity or at the court square. So that's where he's been sitting at. And he has been using it, yes. And he has been stopping them, but been trying to give people a break living. Most of the ones we have live inside the city. Our problem children with a loud exhaust, and we try to help the people outside the city, of course, and tell them to get their exhaust fixed. So before we start issuing citations to people, because it's not it's simply not a cheap fix. I mean, when you ask someone to change your exhaust on a vehicle, you're talking $300-400 minimum. So we're trying to give them time to get it fixed. What we're trying to do. So before we start doing
I just want them to get the message that it's not acceptable.
Right. Well, we've been stopping them. I mean, we've been trying to help them out.
Even if you don't have a decimeter on the thing, just stop them. You know it's loud. You may not be hearing it right then, but you heard them coming up before you saw them.
Right. Well, we're trying to do it by the statute, use the decibel meter like we're supposed to be doing. We are stopping. We are working on it though. I promise.
Okay. Anything else, Alderman Anderson?
No.
Okay. Report. Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to get MTS to come in and meet with our board to get all that clear of what the alderman's job is and get everything cleared up when we can move forward.
Okay, you've got a city attorney here, you've got a code. We can ask them to come in.
We'll say, there's a motion, so.
All right, I recognize the motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All right, got a second. All in favor, say aye. Let's do it by roll call vote.
On discussion, are you talking about having a class or something?
Just not coming to a board meeting, just a special meeting, just to go over things and clarify things with us.
Do we have to go?
No, you can go.
Okay.
Till we call the roll.
Anderson,
Yes.
Yes.
Cobb, Fielding,
Yes.
Lutz,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Okay. We'll contact MTS and see if they want to come in.
Thank you.
Any other reports from Alderman advisory committees? Unfinished business, the fiscal year 2020 audit. Mr. Pool's here tonight to present the audit to us. I believe all of you have a copy of it already. We made a PDF of it and we're ready.
I'm so sorry, Mayor. My name is John Poole, CPA, hired to perform the state required annual audit, which the manual you guys have downloaded. We'll talk a lot about numbers just because of the time of the year. But let me have you go to page 19. And while you're, well, let me have you go to page 19, the PDF. It'll be 19 at the bottom. I'm not sure what page I got in the PDF. Yes, I sure did.
That'd be great.
I'm just gonna sit right there. Sorry about that. I apologize for being. As you're kind of getting, just going to talk about the audit, what we're trying to do. That's really three things. One, make sure that we get the information that the state requires to send to them in the format.
You think Linda and I could have a copy?
Oh, so sorry. To be honest, I looked at you and I thought you said no, like you've got your PDF. No, sir. No, sir. That's not, anyone else? Here. Well, that is almost.
There's one more right here.
My apologies.
No, I printed it.
So, like I said, three things. One, making sure we get the financial information in the format that the state requires. Truth of the matter is, Carla does such a good job of that. We as auditors don't have to spend a whole lot of time in doing that, but that is one of the purposes of the audit. And then really the two other, second one is making sure the monies that we should be getting, whether that's from annual property tax, monthly utility billing, monthly amounts from the state for sales taxes, money from the county, money from police fines, money from miscellaneous parking, whatever that may be, just making sure that we're getting the money that we should be getting. Let me just start off by saying, in my opinion, we do. Obviously, you have as many property tax owners, you're going to have some folks that are delinquent. We obviously, the town does a good job of tracking those and turning those over as appropriate, and it's really the best we can do in that situation. Same thing with utility bills. Once again, have as many customers you do, you're going to have some folks that don't pay. We do a good job monitoring that and cutting off as appropriate. So, in my opinion, as auditor, I think the city is getting the monies we're supposed to be getting. And once we receive those monies, making sure the employees are handling those monies in accordance with our city guidelines, state requirements, and if you would, just good business practice. So as auditors, we just don't have much there to talk about. Then the third thing, which is probably most important to this board, is making sure the money that's being spent, monies that this board authorizes from your budgets, making sure that money is, first of all, being spent on city business. It's a simple sentence, but I always like to just repeat, we did not find any instances where we thought monies were being inappropriately spent outside the city. And then just, of course, making sure that the city's following its purchasing procedures, bidding procedures when you have grants involved, making sure that we're following the grant guidelines. And once again, I'm so happy to say that as auditors, we just didn't find any problems in the way that the monies were being spent. So let me quickly talk about numbers, and I'm really just saying this. I know you're aware that just to get this in the public record. They're on page 19. This board is well aware. State requires the city to keep its monies in different, what we call funds. Just think of them as a separate set of books. I think the one that always gives us most concern is the utility fund. This board is very aware that the state has a requirement that you have to be profitable at least every other year. In other words, you can't have losses 2 years in a row. And for the year ending June 30th, 2020, that third number from the bottom of the page, 102,000, that's the surplus. So obviously the city has certainly met the state requirement, and there are no concerns when you think about it. If you go and look up at the top, which is the revenue number, 900,000, we had 100,000 surplus. So we're basically able to put about a dime for every dollar that we take in. Use that dime for future improvements to the system, those kind of things. That money's there. So obviously we've met the state requirement. And then very quickly, if you'll turn back just a few pages, page 16, it's just a summary of all the other funds. We call those the governmental funds. The most important there is in that first column, general fund. That's where the sales tax and the property tax, and that's where we pay our police and firemen and park. Once again, I'm going to have you go 3/4 of the way down the page, and you'll see that number of 260,000. So last year, amidst all the COVID, city still had a surplus of 260,000 related to its general fund, the most important. Then you'll see the next column, solid waste. It had a surplus of a little bit over 100,000. Police department has a small drug fund, which here and there, 1,000, which is just fine. So pretty nice to be able to say that in what we were all fearsome of during the start of the COVID, what would happen to our economics, all the operations of the city ended the year with a surplus, which once again gives you guys opportunities to do the things you're thinking about doing. I heard the mayor talk about future paving, and so that's good. My name and phone number is on page 1 of this report. Of course, this report has already been filed with the comptroller's office, and it's on their website. But if there's ever a citizen or a member of this board that wants to call and talk to me directly about the city's finances, here's my name and phone number, and I'll be glad to try to help them in any way that I can. Mayor, I don't know if it's appropriate to ask if they want to ask me questions.
Yes, absolutely.
So I always want to make sure that, but so certainly, if there are any questions, I'd be glad to try to tackle those. I do apologize for not being here last month. The weather was a little bad where I was at, but I do apologize. Okay, no questions. Appreciate working with you.
Right, thank you, Mr. Stowe. Are any other questions of him? Do I hear a motion to accept the audit? And that's not saying that you approve the audit, but to accept it as it's been presented tonight, and it's also already a matter of record at the state comptroller's office. It's on the website if you care to look at it, as are all other governmental entities in Weakley County.
Yeah, I got a comment, no one on this board here at the CPA got any kind of background other than probably high school bookkeeping or something. If it goes through the state comptroller's office, that's a system check and balance, we got it. So I'm happy with what the state said.
Well, they, once again, they do review these to make sure the format is appropriate. They don't look at the numbers per se, other than to say that profit and loss. But they do look at these every year, and we always get good feedback from them.
Start having negative figures, they get real, particularly in your water and sewer fund and our proprietary funds. They get real antsy, and they'll talk to you about that.
Dealt with that before. Don't recommend it, ladies and gentlemen.
I second his motion.
Okay, got a motion second to accept the audit as presented. If you would call the roll, please.
Anderson,
Yes.
Cobb,
Yes.
Dildon,
Yes,
Watts,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes,
Parker.
Yes.
All right, let me go to the surplus property resolution and pull it out of the back of the stack of my papers here. We have some vehicles and lawnmowers and things like that the department heads say that they no longer use. And we have talked about having a surplus equipment auction, much like the city of Martin has, and some of the other cities, as well as Weakley County, Tennessee, to auction off these things and hopefully attain the best price for them that we can, rather than just letting them sit up under an awning at the city shop and batteries go dead on them and things like that. And the lawnmowers, they become difficult to crank and all of those kind of things. So these are things that here in this list that the department head said is surplus equipment. You'll notice that there are 4 vehicles on there that are listed as at the very bottom. The last 4 vehicles on there are a Chevy Impala, a Ford Crown Vic, a Ford Crown Vic, and a Dodge Charger. I'm asking that y'all declare all of these items as surplus property, and that we have an auction to sell those. But there are 2 vehicles that the city of Sharon has requested to buy, 2 of those police cars, and I'm not sure which ones they were. Chris, do you know right offhand?
They were supposed to be getting with me. We were going to discuss the cars, which ones they would like to have.
They are talking about acquiring 2 of those cars from the city of Dresden through an intergovernmental exchange or purchase, and where we would not have to necessarily do a bid auction on. And I see the auditor shaking his head agreeing with that. But there are 2 of them. The mayor over there tells me she can spend up to $1,000 acquiring these vehicles. I don't know what they were worth, but that would be approximately $500 for each of the vehicles. The city could also give those vehicles to the city of Sharon if the board so desired. City of Sharon operates on our surplus this time is almost what their entire budget is for the year. So just to give you a little bit of understanding the shape that they're in, and they're not known for having surpluses in Sharon. Is there any feelings about those 2 vehicles, or what y'all would want to do in regard to those vehicles? This auction would not be held probably to sometime in April, would be my guess, after the weather is better.
You have no idea, Chris, which ones they might want?
I have 2 Crown Vics. We just put batteries on to get those running again. They're in pretty decent shape. We also have a black Charger that the investigator was driving. We stripped the lights out of it, and it's got 120,000 miles or so on it. One of the Crown Vics has got around 120 on it. The other one has around 80. So, I mean, they're still very usable cars, but they're just sitting underneath the awning for us, and we're having to keep the tires from rotting down and the batteries, and it's just an upkeep for us. So I'm not sure which ones they were wanting to acquire. I would say one of the Crown Vics is probably one of the Chargers, and we would probably keep one of the other Crown Vics for a spare. So that's just what I'm guessing. I did talk to one of the people with the city today, and they were supposed to get with me this week, and we were going to look at the cars and kind of see what they wanted to do. So.
I say we get that information before we decide to sell it to them or don't.
They've got time to do that. It's probably going to be April or more before they in a position to make a decision on it. And I'll tell the mayor over there that we're going to act on those. It'll be before we can possibly schedule an auction anyway. So
these cars have all the light bars and everything.
One of the Crown Vics, the 2 Crown Vics are fully outfitted, and the Charger, it was stripped down to put the lights in the vehicle we just purchased. So the only thing it is just a car. It's just a bare car. But the 2 Crown Vics, yes, they're fully equipped.
Is the stuff on it worth more than the car?
Probably close to the same as the car, I would say. And there's probably going to be, those Crown Vics been parked for a pretty good while, and there's probably going to be some hidden issues with them once they get started in driving, and I imagine things will pop up, but we started them, we've been maintaining them at the city lot, but, you know.
Well, could I get a motion and a second on the entire surplus thing so we can go ahead and start planning the auction? Motion by Alderman Dildy. Do I hear a second? Alderman Clutch makes the second.
That's something.
Yes, sir.
We're gonna get an auctioneer.
It would be an
Be
auctioneer.
somebody, a local auctioneer.
Marshall Anderson normally has a county auction. We would probably, if they got one coming up, they just had one, but if they had another one coming up before too long, we'd probably try to join in with them, or just to get more people there.
We don't have one of these 10% higher fees.
Marshall does not. Marshall does not. All right, got a motion and a second. Any other questions? Hearing none, if you would call the roll, please.
Anderson,
Yes.
Cobb,
Yes.
Fielding,
Yes.
Lutz,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Okay, Weakley County Economic Development, we have Chairman Liggins here and Shelby Spurgeon, who's the CEO, with us tonight. You voted at the last meeting to ask them to come to this meeting, so if y'all could ask them any questions. Chairman Liggins, would you like to make any statement or anything before we begin, or you just want to hear what questions they have? And
Well, I think we can start out by Shelby, the director, giving a activity of what she's done since over the last 2 years. She's been the executive director of the Economic Development Board.
Okay, go ahead and do that.
Thank you. And I want to say thank y'all for letting us be here tonight. And I do have some business cards that I'll pass out to each of you after we kind of talk, just so you guys can have my email and my phone number if you guys ever have any questions or, curious about what's going on. But I talk fast, so if I'm going too fast, just try to slow me down. But some of these things I want to talk about they cover the whole county, and then some of ours specifically for Dresden. But just want to cover some of those things as well that are affecting Dresden, but they're also affecting the county as well. So first, I want to start off by talking about RFIs. So if you're not familiar with the RFI process, that is a request for information that we get from the state of Tennessee or TVA, and that's how we really get a lot of our industrial properties, or not properties, but companies here in Weakley County. So out of the 33 that I have submitted over the past 2 years, 15 of those were for the Dresden Pad Ready site, and 3 of them were for the Frog Properties building. I know Champion Homes is in part of that, and then the other half is vacant. So just wanted to let y'all know that was kind of what we've been looking at for RFIs for the city of Dresden. So then kind of going off on just some other things that we've been working on. So regarding workforce, we've been working on a remote workers program from the state, from TVA, excuse me. We were selected as a pilot program for that. So that covers all of Weakley County. So anybody who's living in Weakley County can apply for that. And if they live here, that they're basically, I'll give them a free code and they can log on there and they can search for jobs that are all remote, but they'll stay here in Weakley County. So because of that, we think that due to the pandemic and things like that, people are realizing that they can work from home and they can be successful doing that. So we think that that's a good program. We hope to continue it for years to come, just so that we can have people who, say they can't find a job necessarily here in Weakley County, but they can find one that's remote and they can still live here in Weakley County. Let's see. Kind of going with that a little bit, we're also working with the school system and UT Martin to kind of implement with that as well. Kind of going back to the school system, we are working in partnership with the Northwest Tennessee Workforce Board and the school system and 10-Point Solutions. And we've been talking about this for, I want to say, probably a year now. And we were supposed to do it last year, but again, due to COVID, we weren't allowed to. But we have started up a soft skills training for all of our middle school and high school. So all of these students will be they'll really be training in, how to do an application, how to interview, things like that. Because that is one of the big things that we see our industries is, saying like, hey, what's going on? What are your workforce issues? And they say like, some of the people that come in, they can't even have a basic conversation with us. So we're trying to hit those students early, and we're going to try to hit them often as well. So we hope that after this year, this is our first year doing it, we'll be able to continue that. And we actually did get a grant to apply for that. So we won't be using any of our funds for that. So we're really excited to see how that kind of goes. And also with that, we'll be having an industry panel. So something that I think that some of the schools here, they don't realize that, hey, I can go get a job at MTD or Champion Homes. And I can be very successful doing that. So, that's something that we're really looking forward to doing. Let's see. So, 3-star, that is a big thing that our office does. I know Barbara had done it for several years, but, just wanted to mention that we completed it last year or 2 years ago. It's gone on a 2-year basis now, so it's rolling around again this year. And what that looks like is, it's really a strategic community development program developed to assist communities preparing for a better future. So without that certification that we complete, the city of Dresden or any of the cities in Weakley County would not be able to apply for any of the Tennessee Economic Rural or Community Development grants. So that's just a big piece of what we do is we make sure we get it done and we submit goals and we submit our strengths and weaknesses. And it's kind of an ongoing thing for 2 years, but we get that done just so that you guys can also apply for other grants for your cities. Specifically talking about the Dresden Pad Ready site, I had been fortunate enough to work with Priscilla, and I hate to see her go because she was a great asset, and I think that she did a lot for the city of Dresden. And some of the stuff we had talked about was how can we market the Dresden Pad Ready site even better, because as much as we would love to get a prospect in here to look at this site, it is not close to an interstate. It's not close to an airport, and all of Weakley County is kind of like that. So one of the things that we did talk about was TVA actually is currently working on giving us a 2D rendered building. So instead of putting a ton of money into building a spec building, like $2 million, we don't have that kind of cash right now. We're going to get a 2D rendered building from TVA that we can show consultants and companies. And then after that, we'll be contacting TLM to see if they can kind of put together an actual virtual spec building that we could take kind of consultants through. And with that, on that side, I've actually been in contact with H&M Construction, and they provided me with kind of really just a 1D spec building of what a 3,000 square foot building would look like on that site. And so that's been really helpful when we submit that for RFIs, just so that a company can see, okay, this is where a parking lot would be. This is how we would, get rail access, highway access, and stuff like that. And it also kind of
Can I stop you right now?
Sorry.
How many square feet did you say?
It's graded for a 300,000 square foot.
Okay.
Sorry.
I heard 3.
Sorry, I'm talking fast and I probably don't say my numbers. But also kind of going back to that, something that I had noticed was not even really Dresden is probably, the signage out there is not the best. I mean, you're driving down the highway and you see a little sign that says Dresden Industrial Park, and a lot of people, probably drive right by it. And also for, City of Martin, they have a kind of a bigger sign, and Greenfield has a smaller sign. But something that we were looking at doing, and TVA is also helping us with that, which something that I use TVA a lot because all of their services are free. So they'll create master planning for us, all that type of stuff, solely for free. And that's great for small rural communities. So with that, we're looking at getting some mock-ups done of what a big, industrial sign would be. I don't have a picture of it, but Gibson County just did one that it's beautiful. It looks great, and it's a great attraction for their industrial park. And what we want to do is kind of get that out there on the highways so people can know where it was, but also get the industries that are in that industrial park listed, so that anybody who may be going out there for a job interview or just going out there to see them, something like that, a supplier, they could find that pretty easily. And also for consultants coming in, it would make it a lot easier for them to go out there as well. Also on the Pad Ready side, I don't know if any of y'all have been out there, but sometimes it's kind of hard to locate that site if you don't know where it's at. Priscilla and I actually had that conversation because she was like, I don't know if I missed it or what, but something that some of the other communities have done successfully, and that we were kind of looking at, is getting, maybe not a huge sign, but another smaller sign that's like right on that property that says, okay, this is a Dresden Pad Ready site. Here's some maps of it. Here's some, master planning that we have done. And then we put, my contact information and the city's contact information. So if anybody had gone out there, they could call us and tell us if they were interested. So let's see. One of the things that I'm really looking forward to in this coming year is we are working again with TVA to develop a local insight. And what that is, basically, TVA has a website called TVA Sites, and that is where all of our industrial sites are listed. So any company, really anybody, you guys can go on there and see the industrial sites we have here in Weakley County. However, for local insight, this will be kind of covering we could list any kind of building or, property that we wanted to on there. So something that we're about to start doing is, once they get that site up and running, kind of taking an inventory of all of the empty buildings in all of Weakley County and uploading them to that site, so that hey, and we're gonna put it on our website, hopefully the city's websites as well, so if people are looking, they can say, or if we need to direct somebody to that, we'll say, hey, just go to this website and you can find a whole slew of businesses that are available, or places that are available. Let's see, also, just a little bit on marketing. As far as what we do for marketing for the county and our cities, a lot of that we did through, I'm on a board called the Tennessee Economic Partnership. However, due to COVID, we have not been able to travel as much. We go to, shows and stuff where a bunch of companies were, and we would talk to them, and I would let them know who Weekly County was, what we had to offer, things like that. And then also on that, we had talked about doing kind of an email marketing campaign. So we would put together kind of this email that we would send out to a lot of consultants and companies just about who Weekly County is and what industrial sites we have available. And Lake County has actually just done something like this, so we're trying to follow kind of their lead and do something similar as well. But that's a lot of what we have been working on. Lastly, I just want to mention that workforce is a really crucial piece of what we're looking at right now in Weekly County. I know that workforce is an issue everywhere. However, it's pretty tough around here. And so, I know we don't get all of the big, landings and stuff like that. However, we're trying to continue working with our current industries, make sure their needs are met. And 80% of our jobs, actually new jobs, come from our existing industries. So making sure we're meeting with them, their needs are met, talking with them about the issues they see in the workforce. So before we can really actually be able to handle a new industry, that's something that we have to tackle. And so that's where a lot of our resources are going to right now. And we're just really excited to see what 2021 can bring, and hopefully with COVID will be behind us and we can continue to do a lot more. But that's all that I have right now. I did talk a lot, but if y'all have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. And so I'm sure Tommy will do it too.
I got a question. You said you did 33 RFIs in the last 2 years, and 15 of them were the pad ready site, and 15 were the property.
No, 15 were for the Dresden pad ready site, and about 3 of them were for the property.
Okay. Let me ask you this, in regard to the pad ready site, and specifically, how many times did you ever contact the city of Dresden and let us know that, hey, I sent in an RFI?
Well,
or give us any feedback in regard to what you heard back from those, so we can make corrections or improve our site so that people might be interested in the future if it's some stumbling block at this point.
That's a very good question. So when it comes to RFIs and submitting them, honestly, I usually don't contact any of the mayors to let them know I've submitted an RFI, just because it's just the beginning phase. If we get a call back, that is when, we will definitely contact the city and say, hey, this company's interested. But a lot of the times, I'm sure you all know, I'm not sure if y'all know what an RFI looks like, but a lot of times they're looking for a reason to kick us out. They're looking for that small piece that we don't have, and that's why they're going to kick us out.
And that's one of the reasons I'd like feedback, why did we not get it this time? Maybe we can make a correction. Maybe we could address that, so next time that's not the reason they kick us out.
Yes, well, I will tell you that several of the reasons why the site was not selected was not close to an interstate, not close to an airport, labor shed, stuff like that. So it's nothing that, is necessarily a small piece that we could fix in an instant. I will say that the Dresden Pad Ready site is the best site we have in Weekly County. It meets all certifications. It is top of the line. I mean, it's graded. It's Select Tennessee. I mean, we've done everything on that site. So, when it comes down to it, it's really our location. We don't have that access, direct access.
But and I sat in some of these same classes that you have in regard to becoming a certified economic developer. And I heard in those things that from some of these other counties, they do things like, hey, we're only 5 stoplights or stop signs from Interstate 40, which is 40 miles away. And that's one thing that we got. There's only 5 stop signs that you can, and it's 4-lane all the way to the interstate grade 4-lane all the way. There's ways to market around not sitting squarely on an interstate. We're going to be about 20 miles from an interstate, 26 miles from an interstate 69 when it's developed. We need to be thinking about marketing things such that it doesn't appear that it's as bad as it look. We're not sitting on a 2-lane, which we're gonna
No.
creep along for 45 miles an hour for
Which-
40 miles.
Yes, Mayor, and that's something, when we do submit an RFI, we're not just saying, oh, we're 60 miles from the interstate or however many miles. We try to fluff it up as best as we can and say, we're this many miles, however, we do have a 4-lane highway that it's adjacent to the site and you can get there in this many minutes. So, we're not trying to tell the sad story of this is where we are. We definitely try to sell them the better picture of what we are, because we do think that Weakley County has a lot to offer. And, I really think, this site is top of the line. So, and we have talked about it with, our consultants or not consultants, but TVA in the state. And, we're really not sure why this site hasn't gotten more looks, because it is top of the line. And I really think it just comes down to our location.
How much money have you spent independently with the Weakley County ECD marketing this site?
With marketing your site, or like just from our budget?
Mhm.
So, I mean, I guess I have to look back at our budget, but when we go to certain trade shows and stuff like that, we're marketing the Dresden Pad Ready site, we're marketing our Greenfield site that we have in Greenfield, Tennessee. I don't know why I said Tennessee, I'm sure y'all know where that's at. But yeah, it's several, I mean, I could look back on the past 2 years and probably tell you how much we have done on that. Alderman Moore, did you have a question?
So Nick, where is this site that you're talking about? The one that's got all the glory and all of the.
In Dresden, it's right off of the highway and it is in the industrial park, right?
I didn't know you mentioned Dresden.
Yes.
I know what it is.
How much, you mentioned earlier workforce issues. How much on these RFIs that go in, does that not punch the ticket? How often does that come up?
It's about every single RFI you get, they're gonna ask about your labor shed. And, I do have some information I'd love to email you guys that kind of looks at the inflow outflow of Weakley County of who's coming in and who's leaving to go to work. And so, but every time I get an RFI, they're asking specific questions about that. And one of the benefits that we do have in Weakley County is the Northwest Tennessee Workforce Board, and they can give me all kinds of data on, who's working where and what their age range is and stuff like that. So again, we try to fluff it up as best that we can, but sometimes it just comes down to, okay, well, your unemployment rate's really low. Where are we going to find these people?
When you're talking about labor shed, are you talking about county to county migration, or people are leaving Weakley County and working to other places?
Yes.
Prior to 2016, we had an inflow of folks coming into Weakley County to work, according to the labor statistics that are available. And we began to shed off or have people migrate out of Weakley County starting in 2016 to work at other areas.
2006, I'm really just trying to focus on the time that I've been here.
But that's when it started.
Yes,
And,
2016. And I think that, some of that could probably be just due to there are larger industries that are moving, Gibson County, Tyson, and some of the times we have to tell our industries we need to keep our wages competitive, or you will have some of those employees start to leave just to go work outside the county.
I'm going to email you some labor facts that I put together about Weakley County. And, in 2010, we were 53rd in Tennessee in per capita income. We're now 73rd. And median household income, we went from 64th to 72nd from 2010 to 2018. We're falling backwards. We're going backwards in Weakley County and the 76th district for Tennessee. And it's something that needs to be addressed. We don't need to be $20,000 behind the median income for the state of Tennessee. If you look at those facts, and our unemployed persons, or the number of employed persons in Weakley County, doesn't need to be continually going down.
Yes, I agree.
And when you say that workforce development was the number one issue that they're looking at, they're looking for welders, they're looking for machinists, they're looking for industrial
yes,
folks that do all handyman in the industry, that do the maintenance in the industry and things like that. They're looking for computer programmers and networkers and things, all of which we don't have.
And that's something that we're trying to implement in this new soft skills training, is showing them, these are the people that are working in the industry, this is what their job is.
Are we gonna go further than just telling
Yes.
them how to fill out an application and how to say, show up at work on time, how to punch a time card?
Yes,
That's what we've got to do in Weakley
Yes,
County.
and I agree,
We're
and I
going to
think-
get back competitive with the rest of Tennessee.
yes, and I agree completely. It's something that I want to mention, and I'm not sure how any of you guys feel on it, but, I think a lot of what we miss is that, this, I guess just an example of that would be the fiber that the county commission just passed. I am a big supporter of fiber because that's why people are leaving our county. They don't have access to internet. They can't call somebody for help if they need to. So they're like, well, I'm just going to move to Jackson or Gibson County where I can call somebody. And so I think that was a big win for Weakley County because it's showing people, okay, we're taking a step in the right direction and we're going to be able to get really just the necessary infrastructure to all of our industries and all of our people, because in industry now, that's what they look at. If you don't have fiber, they're checking it off, you're gone. And so I think that Weakley County is starting to make moves in the right direction. However, we have seen in the past that sometimes people just don't want to change and they don't want to do new stuff. And so we just need to continue to push the needle on that and make sure we're changing and we're not being the last county to do so.
And you're aware that Dresden 2 years ago
Yes.
completed our fiber project, and we've had high-speed internet, and you can get a gigabyte of download and upload, synchronous download and upload here in Dresden if you wanted it. And we were one of the first to become a gigabyte city in Tennessee, along with the city of Martin. And that's something that this board was very progressive about, and they voted for it and voted to spend a little over $2.2 million that we're paying for over, 30 years, I guess, is what we elected to do. But it's our board has been progressive, and we're interested in recruiting business, and we're interested in recruiting industry. But if you look out on the 4-lane at what new industry Dresden's got in the last 6 years, that Lindell and I have been aldermen on the board, and there's been a tremendous influx for a small city like Dresden of retail and things like that, and things is still going on. And I'm glad that the Dresden Business Association has opened up and going to start running projects and things, but we need a very active economic development.
Well, I would like to say on behalf of myself, I do feel that I am very active. I will say to you guys, I know due to COVID, and maybe just before that, I may have not been as present at these meetings, but just since conversations at my board meetings and with some other mayors, I will this year make it a priority to attend a meeting every quarter, so 4 times a year. If you guys want me to come more, you can give me a shout. Or email me, I'll be happy to attend. And again, if you have a specific question and say, hey, what are you doing about this? Or what are you working on this? I will be happy to answer that. Or if you have something that, hey, let's focus on this type of retail at this place right here. Can you help me out on that? 100%. Just give me a call and we'll get to working on that. But I do feel that I have been very active in all of Weakley County. And
I'll say too, I don't want you guys to think that as an economic development board that we're just kind of sitting there and Shelby's just kind of responding to things as they come. She's proactive about going and looking for things also. This labor development board that we're trying to put together to try to address the issues with the workforce so that can be addressed as time goes along, so that we don't have the issues that we have when the RFIs come out. There's many things that need to be fixed in the county, and we're trying to be proactive about fixing those things. So, if there's any questions ever, we would appreciate you guys getting in touch with us and saying, hey, we've got an issue with this or an issue with that, so that we know that there's a problem so that we can address it. We talk to all the mayors in the county all the time. They're supposed to be at our board meetings. They're all members of our board meetings, so they're supposed to be there. And part of the charge of the mayors is to bring this information back to you as a board to let you know that this is what happened at the board meeting this month. And so, we're constantly working, trying to improve, economic development in the county. And we're working on behalf of every city in the county to accomplish everything that we can for each city. So don't feel like that we're not representing you the best that we can, because we are.
One of the things that you and I have been very honest with one another in the last few weeks. And I've been very honest about how I feel about things, and I think you've been responsive to how you feel about things. But one of the things I have a problem with is on the Economic Development Board, to me, it seems more like a breakfast club meeting rather than a business meeting to really share information with folks and things, and particularly the mayors. We have a interlocal agreement that says the executive committee shall meet 8 times a year. I have been on the ECD board for 6 years. We've never had a separate executive committee meeting in which it's the 7 or the 5 mayors, 6 mayors counting the county mayor, and the 3 chief officers of the association, which comprise the executive committee. And that's the board that takes up issues, policy issues. It takes up, it's the personnel committee, which we have a separate personnel committee, but the interlocal agreement says that the executive committee decides personnel issues and makes recommendations. And it also supposed to do the budget, but I don't know how that gets done because we've never had a separate executive committee meeting to even discuss the budget or where the money's going and things like that. And I say that not to be critical, but we have an interlocal agreement, which is in essence a contract between the cities and the Weakley County Economic Development Board. And the board more or less operates helter-skelter, in my opinion. And that's not being critical of you, Chairman Liggins. I'm not. But you have operated just like every other president. But we need to follow what the interlocal agreement says. And we need to have representation of every city when we have a major decision like a consolidation with the chamber taking place. We don't have that. City of Sharon's doesn't have a representative on that board that lives in their city. The city of Dresden does. And that's an issue that apparently nobody's interested in addressing, even though it said it would be if it was a problem. But I guess we're past that.
Well, and let me, just for the information of the board of how all this transpired, the chamber and the Economic Development Board decided that it was in the best interest of this county to try to, merge into some shape, form, or fashion of a board that would work more efficiently and more profitably for the county so that we can use our resources the best that we can. And so there was a group that got together to give just an advisory board, nobody official, the board was not official, just to give everybody a recommendation of this is how we ought to go about this. That board gave the recommendation to both boards, to the chamber and to the Economic Development Board. And it was decided that there would be 3 members appointed from each of those boards, and then the county mayor would appoint 1 member. And so there was nominations of both boards to nominate their 3 members. Those 3 members were voted on by both boards and by all the parties of that board, of which all the mayors are a member of both boards. And so those 3 members were elected by each board. The county mayor appointed somebody. And so we made sure that there was representation from each town in the county. And so both of those boards elected the folks they elected, and they got placed on this board. And so now we're trying to come together to determine what's the structure even look like? How do we form? Is it a nonprofit? Is it, how are we going to structure this going forward? And then also determine what the leadership's going to look like and how that leadership is going to be appointed to this board. And so both boards have given their blessing on doing that and moving forward in that manner. And so that's where we are in the process.
And I second the motion in the Chamber of Commerce but I was under a different impression about, each city was gonna have representation, and if it wasn't of the 7 approved people that were voted on, that it would come back to the alternates that was left. And that situation would be taking place, and that did not occur. There has not been any rectification of the city of Dresden having a representative on the board, and you can call it self-serving or whatever, I don't really care, but I was the only resident of the city of Dresden and the only elected official from the city of Dresden that was nominated and voted on. And I was nominated in this ECD board. And you noted in your own thing, and by the way, the board already has information about what the emails contained and the statements that you made in regard to that situation being remedied. And if it didn't occur where each community had a representative. Jake Bottom is not a representative of Dresden. He lives about 4.5 miles outside our city, back towards here, and he just happens to have a Dresden mailing address. And he had it, as county mayor, he had a right to appoint himself if he wanted to serve.
If I can interrupt.
Yes.
This discourse is providing absolutely no information for what this board's doing. You're a member of that board. You can bring this that you guys are talking about has to do with the functioning of this board, not this board. It's getting late. I see nothing that's being, and if you other guys want to keep on going on this, that's fine, but I'm not getting anything out of this. I'd like to know what they're doing. And if you've got problems with the way it's done, you're on the board. Bring it up. Lobby the members on there.
I have.
Okay. But we can't do it. Jeff, we can't do it. You're just sitting here telling him the same thing you've been telling for 2 weeks. I'm ready to go home.
Okay. Any other questions?
If you are not gonna report to us in person every quarter, please put in a written.
Okay. I'll be happy to do so.
I just have one quick thing I want to say. I know it's important to bring new business in here and new industry, and I'd love to see a lot of it come in, I really would. But what I also want to say is that I don't want to lose any of the stuff we've already got here. So, I mean, I want to make sure that we're responsive to the needs of the industries that are here. And also, I don't know, this may be a crazy idea, but do you ever ask them what other industries could be located here that would make things easier for them? Like what suppliers they use? Could we get a factory in here that does lumber or nuts or bolts or something?
Yes, ma'am.
Because I sat out at Avon Books in 1999. And I was aware of everything that went on in the sale of the company, the Hearst Corporation's book division to HarperCollins. Our warehouse was the prime facility in the warehouses that were owned. We didn't get to stay here because nobody here did anything to try to keep that industry here. And don't tell me they did, because I know better. I know they did not. It left. I knew the day it left that within 5 years, the Regnier America would be gone too, because we were their largest customer. When we weren't in their back door, it made no sense to ship books all the way to Scranton, Pennsylvania. So that warehouse in Scranton got the book business. All the people out of Avon lost their jobs, and I'm going to tell you, I had a real good job out there, and a lot of other people did too. We made great money. All of our people were paid well. The people at the printing place was paid well too. We can't afford mistakes like that. Yeah, we just cannot.
And that's
And I
something,
still haven't got over that, quite frankly.
that's something that we do is we talk to our industries about, hey, what are your suppliers and could we get them closer to you? And then, again, that's something I heavily focus on, is making sure the needs of our current industries, their needs are being met.
And something that we're working on too, that Shelby's doing a good job of trying to put together, is to put together a meeting of a group of all the plant managers in the county, so that she can meet with them periodically to find out what needs there are and what things we can do to help them and to ensure that we do keep those factories in this county.
Why are y'all just doing this now? I'm looking at figures here, and over the last 10 years, we've lost everything. What little we gained has gone to another town. I'm just wondering if these other small cities feel the same way.
If
Seems like y'all bending over backwards to try to please us and maybe smaller cities. You should have been doing this all along.
Well, I can only speak to the time that I've been on the board the last 2 years,
Yeah, that's a
so.
good excuse. I've heard that before.
I got one thing. It appears that if you look at demographic wise, that people are fleeing New York, they're fleeing California and several other locations around the country. And a lot of these people can do their work from anywhere. They're not Toyota, an assembly plant. They don't hire 300 people, but maybe they hire 8. Do y'all have any kind of plan that would send out some way to market our area as a place to live, and why they could be able to do their job here? How they can buy a house cheaper, the different qualities that we might have that not everybody's going to want to be here, but perhaps there's somebody. Do y'all have any plans to develop anything?
That's part of our email marketing campaign that we're looking at developing. Not only would it hit consultants and companies, but those companies that are leaving, it would be more of like a live, work, play, weekly county, live here, work here, play here. So that's kind of where we're trying to hit that demographic.
I realize that we're not set up here to have an Amazon warehouse. We probably don't want one. We're satisfied, or I'm satisfied personally. But these other little old places around, we'd be glad to accept the Wendy's or something. Well, we don't ever get considered for smaller businesses. If this ever comes up for a vote, I can tell you how I'm fixing to vote. I can't speak for anybody else, but if it's legal and everything, we've had negativity over here for the last 10 to 20 years. And I speak for the people that voted for me. So y'all just be aware. Anything that's legal, and this is not over, it'll come up again. And I hope these other smaller cities are watching this tonight. I personally feel like y'all just shoved us aside. We still want your money. I'm through.
One of the things that I want to do is for the city itself to become more involved in the marketing of our industrial site outside of this area. And I will say this: I appreciate every time that you send an RSI or an RFI into the state and list the industrial park. But I think that we need to probably be more independent in our own marketing of it and try to reach out as well. And that doesn't mean that we can't work together on that, but I think that you don't have no money. You're not going to have any money for 4 more years while you're paying for that marketing spec building. Continue paying for it. And so if we're going to do something, we're going to have to do more on our own. And I think it's part of what you're talking about, us marketing, housing, great place to live, internet, broadband, you can get fiber, and all of those things here is some of the things that we've got to market for ourselves. And personally, I would like to see the, and I'm sorry, Gwen, but I would like to see the Economic Development Board operate more in accordance with the interlocal agreement.
Jim, I'm not opposed to that. I just don't need to hear it. It's not my choice.
Okay.
You need to take that up with the board. You're the member there.
But I represent you.
Okay, then do it.
And I've been trying.
Okay.
But, and what reason I withheld the payment, and I'll tell you, we're going to pay our payment. It may be the last day of the month, the year, But that's the only way that we have got the attention of the Economic Development Board.
I would just like to make one small statement, and Mayor Washburn, you may agree with me or disagree with me, but, it was news to me that the city of Dresden was upset with their services until, I realized that you guys were not paying. Because it has never been brought up in a board meeting or brought to my attention.
Well, I spoke quite fluently about how I felt about this consolidation board, and I still have strong feelings about it, and I have strong feelings about what might happen to the Chamber of Commerce and things. But, that's neither here nor there. And it'll be as it is, and we'll vote accordingly. Any other business come before the board? I see Mayor.
I'm heading out.
That's all right. Anything else? All right, got a motion second to adjourn.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He made a motion, Lee.
No, I didn't hear who made the motion.
Yeah.
Maybe it's more understood. He just-
I guess that's that. That was a big deal.
You
Yeah.
I didn't want to trip you.
Excuse me.
58.